Good morning, welcome to Ventnor on the Isle of Wight. My name's Steve. I'm just going to have a walk around Ventnor and have a chat about getting a career in nature conservation. Let me put you on my head. There we go. So yeah, just a little walk and talk, bit of birding and a bit of chatting about nature conservation as a career. I hope that wind isn't too loud. Let's go out this way a bit. So maybe you're a youngster, maybe you're in university, you've just started university, or you're pre-university age, or maybe you're a more mature individual, let's say, and you're looking for a career change. And getting a career in wildlife conservation can be challenging initially until you really break in. It's quite challenging for me just because I didn't get the traditional kind of qualifications early on. That didn't stop me though. I've been in conservation for 30 years now. Certainly didn't stop me, and it absolutely won't stop you if you're determined and strategic about it. But yeah, so I during my GCSE years, so 13, 14, 15, 16, I went fox watching most nights. So rather than going to sleep and resting up, I went fox watching, which meant during the day when I was at school, supposedly doing my GCSEs, I was half asleep all the time. And I flunked all of my GCSEs. I got 2, I think. I got English. No, I got 3 at grade D. So English, art and maths. So I completely failed environmental studies. And all that was because I was too passionate about nature. I didn't want to be in the classroom. I wanted to be out watching foxes, walking around local oak woodlands, looking for firecrests and spotted flycatchers, and dormice and that kind of stuff. So I was clearly heading in one direction, which was wildlife conservation or some sort of ecology conservation role. But I was not doing myself any favours in theory by what I was doing, but I was in another sense. But I flunked my GCSEs, didn't get any of those, which meant I couldn't do A levels, which meant those few years, 16, 17, 18, when I should have been preparing for, well, traditionally preparing for university. I say traditionally, I love universities and you should definitely go to university if that's what you desire. But what I did do, because I was really passionate and driven about wildlife, is I began to hone my campaigning skills. So I did a bit of volunteering, as you do, with the local wildlife trust. I even went off to do residential volunteering with the RSPB. But the thing that was really valuable that I did was I took the initiative to start a campaign. I started and led a campaign against a damaging flood alleviation scheme in South London at the time. And that developed very early on. I was a very shy school kid basically. I was 17, 18 at the time. That kind of early experience of campaigning, you know, drawing people together, creating a core group of friends, local community members who wanted to help me campaign. I was chairman of the little community group, the campaign group that we'd set up. That just gave me confidence. It built up my self-confidence. It gave me skills, people skills, communication skills, writing skills, because we did a lot of letter writing, and even graphic design skills when we created our leaflets. It was a collective effort, but I was exposed to a lot of the core things that wildlife conservation NGOs will do at a very early age. I was exposed to that, and it taught me the kinds of things I enjoyed doing and the kinds of things I enjoyed delegating. So I enjoyed public speaking, oddly enough, as a very shy, slightly socially awkward kid. I didn't like group chatting particularly, the old spotlight effect and all that sort of stuff I didn't like, but I did like standing up in front of a big crowd, like a public meeting, and thumping my wrist on the table and rabbling the I was a rabble rouser, is that the word? I enjoyed that. I enjoyed winding people up and getting people on side and angry and triggered in favour of a wildlife friendly flood alleviation scheme was the theme. But if you can embed yourself in kind of the things that NGOs, that conservation charities, if you want to work for a charity, if you can embed yourself in the kinds of things they do at an early age and expose yourself to the variety of functions such as campaigns, leaflet design, communications, presenting arguments, compelling arguments, that kind of stuff, So we had to present very detailed justifications for changing this flood alleviation scheme from a concrete engineering centric scheme to a wildlife friendly wetland flood storage kind of approach. So you had to learn a lot of quite complex stuff to be able to present a case in a compelling way. And of course, if you end up working for the RSPB as a conservation officer, you're going to be at public inquiries presenting the ecological case against damaging developments. Kind of similar stuff, really. But if you can do that at an early age, do it. Now, how did that damage my long-term prospects? Well, when I was 19, I think it was, I was offered a job as community liaison officer for that flood alleviation scheme by the National Rivers, by the Environment Agency. And I lasted about 8 months doing that. It was great fun. I was out liaising with local community to try and persuade the community that our scheme, wildlife friendly scheme, was the best idea. So again, I was exposed to public consultation and walking around the streets, knocking on people's doors and saying, this is what's planned, what do you think? Which is the better option? Anyway, we won the argument with the Environment Agency. They employed me, and that scheme, the wildlife friendly option, was eventually implemented. That wasn't even an option on the table when we started, because the Environment Agency engineers didn't want it. But yeah, so did that do me any harm? Under the circumstances, because I'd flunked my GCSEs and I couldn't do A-levels, it did me the best it could possibly have done me in terms of my career development. But would it have been better to have got my GCSEs, done the A-levels and gone straight into university? In some ways, probably. In other ways, well, no, because it got me a very early exposure to nature conservation and it built up my confidence. Now, university at 18 would have done similar things without a doubt, and it would have given me a big peer group to be within. So that's absolutely a legitimate way to go as well. What I did in the end is I stayed at the Environment Agency in that role at that kind of relatively young age for about 8 months. Then I came back to the Isle of Wight, which is where I'm from, and got a job as River Restoration Project Officer and Farmland Bird Recovery Project Officer, believe it or not. It's basically a role that I kind of helped a little charity on the Isle of Wight develop. They had access to funds, they employed me as a project officer to deliver the project. So basically, by that time, by my early 20s, I'd kind of carved my own niche out in nature conservation. But I then moved to the RSPB and became a chalkgrassland project officer, then a conservation officer down in the southwest. That I headed up to Norwich. Now, I headed up to Norwich because I really wanted to go to university, and at that time the place to go if you wanted to study ecology was University of East Anglia. Still relatively good. Nowadays it's University of Exeter. Funnily enough, I was living in Exeter at the time, but I wanted to go to UEA in Norwich. So I relocated with my job to Norwich, stayed working with the RSPB part-time, and started a postgraduate diploma in ecology part-time. So UEA's was good in that it gave me a route to get into university to study. Basically it's undergraduate ecology, but just a 1-year course. They call it a postgraduate diploma, but it's actually, you take undergraduate courses, and it's essentially an access course to a master's. So yeah, I relocated to Norwich, University of East Anglia, accepted me onto that course. I did that course, then I moved on to a master's, an MSc in ecology. So as you can see, no GCSEs, no A-levels. I managed to get onto a master's course in ecology, and that's because I was obsessed. Basically, I'm a reader. You've got to be a reader. You've got to consume journal articles enthusiastically, and kind of edited sciencey books written by legitimate scientists, at universities or working for conservation NGOs. Their books, like a really classic one is so Sinclair, Anthony Sinclair, who works in the Serengeti. He's written a set of 3 or 4 books, well more than that, 4 or 5 books on the Serengeti ecosystem. A couple of them are autobiographic, but go into how the ecology of the Serengeti was kind of unpicked and researched. And those kind of books are absolutely superb for learning the fundamentals of ecology, I found, and conservation. So obviously Anthony Sinclair is a conservationist as well as an ecologist. So read not only journal articles but also those kind of published books, published by bona fide ecologists and researchers, but also read popular science books in natural history and the environment and that kind of stuff. So David Quammen, Song of the Dodo, is an absolutely superb book on island biogeography and kind of extinction risk in fragmented habitats, that kind of stuff. And that goes into some of the personalities in kind of the research on biogeography, which is really fascinating. So read. And if you find yourself, like I did, in your late teens or your early 20s, struggling to get into university, don't lose hope, but do go back if you want to. It's never too late. So, I then went to Exeter and started a PhD, but that was in my 30s, basically. So, what can we say? Don't give up. Keep going. There are several routes into ecology and nature conservation. If you want to be an ecologist, as in a consulting ecologist, so working for developers or working with developers to try and minimise the damage they're doing, then university is useful, but also very useful, or also critical, is start early on getting your certificates, your tickets basically. So get your bat licenses, get your dormice licenses, your badger licenses, whichever way you want to go. Get good at writing reports. It's not a field I would want to go into because developers can be pretty hostile towards consulting ecologists. They're the client, the developer, and they can really try and influence the advice you give to ease their development but not do very good for wildlife. So personally I wouldn't get a career as a consulting ecologist. There's 1 or 2 consultancy firms that work on behalf of NGOs and statutory agencies only. So Footprint Ecology is the obvious example, down in Wareham in Dorset, in Purbeck. Their clients are all positive clients who really are trying to do the right thing by nature. Whereas most of the consultancies are basically work on behalf of developers, and the developers can be really awkward. But anyway, if you want to get into ecological consultancy, then you'll just need to get those tickets, get those certificates, those the bat licenses and the newt licenses, or the reptile and amphibian translocation licenses, that kind of stuff, and the qualifications and the experience. That can be more useful when it's an absolutely critical to get those, whereas an MSc isn't. An undergrad degree probably is really useful. It's a good field to get into. It can just be very negative. Whereas if you want to get into a conservation NGO, then they tend to ask for an undergraduate degree, like a Bachelor of Science in ecology or conservation or some related field. But it's not necessary. You can do it the more circuitous route, like I did. Actually it's the other way around. I would say my route was a more direct route because I got straight into campaigning and right when I was really young. Whereas with a university route, you're basically doing A levels, which are really tedious, and then an undergrad, and then eventually you get a job when you're in your mid-20s or whatever in conservation. Unless you stay the academic route, then you do your undergrad, then your master's probably, then your PhD, then your postdoc researcher type role, and then eventually, if you're lucky, you'll get a job, a kind of a research associate and kind of associate lecturer and all that kind of stuff. You gradually build your way into the academic field, which can be incredibly rewarding and great fun. And I kind of wish I'd gone down that route sometimes, and I'm glad I didn't in other ways, because I've been overseas doing lots of nice things in nice places in Southeast Asia and the tropical Andes, so I'm very happy with the way I've done things. Never give up, whichever route, whatever your circumstances. I started out as a very skint, shall we say, individual with no money. I couldn't have paid for university, but in those days it would have been funded to some degree. Never give up. And if you're changing career, if you're kind of mid-career, you're in your 30s or 40s and you want to change career into nature conservation, you can absolutely do that. I know loads and loads and loads of people. I've worked with loads of people over the years who have done just that, who have become English Nature or Natural England conservation officers when they worked in the city in banking. I know one guy that did that. Because people get into a conventional career in banking or working for Tesco's or something when they really wanted to get into nature conservation. So there's no harm in changing your career some way down the line, and it's entirely feasible to do that. You just need to build up your portfolio of experience. And so in a future video I'm going to talk about social media and how you can use things like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days, to build up your profile and build up your credentials basically as a bona fide conservationist who's worth employing, because a lot of employers will check your social media, and if your social media makes it very clear you're very passionate and you're sensible, so you're writing well, you're not a troll, that kind of stuff, that you can act professionally when you're online, then that's a real bonus. They will check. Make no mistake about that, especially if you're kind of a front runner in a job role. They will go and check your social media, and if you can build a social media presence that is a positive experience for those recruiting people, then that's going to be a real bonus for you. Anyway, this is Wheeler's Bay in Ventnor on the Isle of Wight. I've come down here, intended to do some birding, but as it is, nice dog having a poop, as it is, there are no birds around because it's January. It's not cold, it's really mild, surprisingly warm actually. It's global warming for you. We really haven't had a proper winter yet. We've had a bit of a cold snap earlier on, but apart from that it's been very, very mild. It's kind of like September weather rather than winter weather, this is. Right, let's walk down here. Somebody's feeding the birdies. Let's go down this way. So do subscribe to this channel if you're interested in nature writing, rewilding, nature-friendly farming, and getting a career in conservation, which was what this little video was attempting to cover. I'll do lots of videos like this on different angles of building a career in wildlife conservation, trying to use my own experience, which was unconventional, to suggest some ways forward. A bit of motivation, hopefully. Do subscribe to the channel, and there's links in the description below this video which might be useful. I have a little Patreon account if you wish to join my Patreon, or if you wish to support me via buymeacoffee.com. That's always much appreciated. Right, I'm going to focus on birds now. Are there any around? You occasionally get black redstarts, so they winter in Ventnor in various spots. They occasionally come down here, mostly in kind of October, November, when they're still moving through. They haven't settled down on their wintering territories yet. Yeah, let's get a conversation going in the comments section. What is your kind of situation? Where are you at in terms of landing a career in wildlife conservation? Are things going well? Are you unsure? Are you just starting out? Are you struggling a bit? Let me know. There is an email address in the About Me section of this YouTube channel where you can contact me directly if you want to. I'm writing a book on getting a career in nature conservation, or developing a career in nature conservation, which uses me as a bit of a case study. So when that's ready, probably a couple of months, I self-publish all of my books. I've got 10 books out now. Not a bad career route to go down, writing and self-publishing your own books. You won't make much money early on, but as you build up your backlist of books, it can become a full-time living, especially if you combine it with YouTube and maybe a podcast, all of which I'll cover on this channel. If you combine things, then you can certainly make a full-time, fully independent living, and it can be location independent as well. I will do a video on the different options for having a career in wildlife conservation, including going it alone, doing your own thing, starting your own businesses such as nature writing, YouTube, monetize YouTube channels, advisory services for NGOs. There's all sorts of freelancing roles you can have. Graphic design, book cover design for nature books, that kind of stuff. Anyway, it's pretty forlorn this morning. There's no birds anywhere. So I think I'll just shut up and you can enjoy the sound of the sea. Here comes the sun. Looks like here comes some rain on the horizon as well. Got southerlies at the moment. A little bit of seawall has collapsed here. That must have come down yesterday. It's interesting. excuse me. Oh, that's quite worrying. A little bit of seawall has been dislodged down there within the last 24 hours. So I just sent a photograph, or a couple of photographs, and a message to the local councillor, Ed, just to let him know, because he's involved in the new coastal defence scheme that's being worked up for this area. So it might be worth them having a quick look. I'll probably put the drone up to have a look later. I can just dip it down there below the wall and get better imagery of it. Might be a bit breezy at the moment. You're right. It's one of the fishermen. Well, thank you for watching, people. Follow the links to my books in the description below this video if you want to see what books I've written. But for now, I'm going to leave you with a view of Ventnor Beach. Hello there, I hope you're enjoying my channel. Just a quick interlude. I've written several books. For instance, Wildlife Watching Around Ventnor. Nice cover there. Bird Watching Around Ventnor. Don't know if you can see that well in the sun. Bird Watching Around Ventnor. And even how to write and publish a book on a smartphone. Now this was written on my iPhone Mini 13. The manuscript for this, and then it was edited and formatted and all the rest of it on a smartphone. So here's a book about how to do that. And I've got various other books. There are links to my books in the description below this video, and go and check them out on the online platforms if you wish to do so. And thank you very much.